All right, problem 31. We have a certain rock band released 20 music albums from 1963 to 1970, as shown in the bar graph. That is a lot of albums to release. That's almost like, what, 3 a year? That's more than Taylor Swift releases, and she releases the same albums. So I feel like this could only be one band. If I had to guess, I love the Beatles. I don't know if it is the Beatles based on their timeline, but it feels like it might be, because that's a lot of albums to be released. If it was any, they could just be making up some random band. But I ramble. If one of these albums is selected at random, what is the probability of selecting an album that was released in 1964? So we want to find 64. So I'm just going to circle that one. That's what we're looking at. And it wants us to express our answer as a decimal fraction. So probably a fraction, right? So important information, 20 music albums. We have these years, which are listed, and we have data that is graphed, okay? We also know the data, which is the albums being released in each year. It's selected at random, and we want to find probability, okay? So we're gonna have probability, which means we have P of X. So P of X will equal something. Note that this is not a multiple choice question. This is a write in the blank question. So you'll have to write in an answer. You will not get to pick from a series of answers, which means you'll really have to know your stuff. Sometimes that means the questions are easier though, because they want you to be able to get the answer for yourself. So how do we find the percentage of one of these being picked when we have weighted values? If we have a dice, we have 6 values on the dice, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And the odds or probability of rolling any one number will be 1 in 6. But probability changes when we have more albums released in the same year. So we have the probability of selecting an album that was released in 64, but 7 albums were released in 64. So the reason that it's 1 out of 6 for a dice is we have one option to choose the number 3. Let's say we want to get the probability of rolling a 3, one option for rolling a 3 out of 6 total options. So this is going to equal possible outcomes I need to write that a little bigger, over total outcomes. So to put it in terms of this question, we have the amount of albums made in 1964, which is 7, which is all of the possible outcomes. They could pick any one of those 7 and we'd win, right? The probability of selecting an album that was released in 64, if they pick that one, it's a good thing. That would be meeting our criteria. So we have 7, and then over the total outcomes, which would be all of the music albums released in our time span, which would be 20. They tell us you could add up all these, it would also equal 20. I sure hope. Let's find out. 2 plus 7 is 9, plus 3 is 12, plus 2 is 14, plus 2 is 16, plus 1 is 17, plus 2 is 19, plus 1 is 20. So they indeed did do their math correctly. It is 20. So you have 7 over 20, and we're done. That's all there is to it. We have the possible outcomes over the total outcomes. I'll write it over here. We have possible outcomes over total outcomes. And moreover, this is possible outcomes like winners. So they're ones that we want to happen in order to get that probability to be fitting our question. So our answer is 7 over 20 because we have 7 albums in 1964 out of our 20 total albums in total. So we have 7 over 20, and our percentage or our probability is going to be 7/20ths. We could express it as a fraction or a percent. So because we have a calculator, we can use it or we might not have to. Because they say either or, I wouldn't waste your time putting in your calculator and getting it as a decimal. But in case you use your calculator for the question, by just finding the 7 over 20 and putting that directly in, we'll find it so you guys know the answer is going to be 0.35 or 0.35. Like I said before, I would just leave it as a fraction because you don't need to actually do any math there. It saves you some time, which is the whole point of the ACT, is time management.